Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grandstand Sports Data, your go to channel for sports, statistics, and unbiased handicapping. And we just have a few questions for you guys today. Do you blow through your budget or your deposit with the blink of an eye? Or are you just starting out and want to be smarter with your bankroll? Well, if you struggle with sticking to a plan or want to preserve your bankroll, today's video will guide you step by step in building a rock solid bankroll from scratch. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's move to step number one, and this would be looking at your personal budget or looking at your personal finances. Where can I get the money? Are you in debt? Are you living paycheck to paycheck? Are you behind on some of your bills? If this is the case, you should not be gambling on sports. You should get your own finances in check and then have recreational spending money. Once that you can be able to accomplish that, that's when you find money that you can afford to lose. And that would be that recreational spending that we just talked about. Me, Anthony, at Grandstand Sports Data, I usually save a fixed percentage, which would be 5%. Out of my personal budget every single month, I usually do needs, wants, and investments or savings, however you want to clarify that. And then out of that investments and savings, that's where I take my 5% and put it to gambling on sports. The next thing I do is I transfer it to a high yield savings account. And the purpose and the reason why I do this is because I want my money that's not in the bookkeeper's possession, but in my own possession, but for sports to be growing and working. So I'm going to show you that you're going to, put your money in different places. But this is number one. You want to be making money or making your money work for you while you betting on sports. That's why let's just say throughout this demonstration and as I show you through the step by step, we're going to start with $1,000. And that's the betting number that our initial deposit that we will use going forward. Now moving on to step number two, now that we have our initial deposit taken care of, we're going to pick a unit size. And a unit size is how much you'll bet for each event. You can see that there's three listed here. We have flat betting, we have percentage betting, and then we have the Kelly criterion. The first one is flat betting, and this is usually good for beginners. It's when you bet the same amount for each event or each game or each match, however you want to put it, and you bet the same amount. Some people will pick 1% of their bankroll all the way up to 3% of their bankroll, and that will be the number that they place on each and every bet. This is very simple, and by simple, it means it's very easy to understand. You don't have any mind work. You know what you're betting on every single game. It's also low risk. So low risk in that is a good thing in terms of you won't lose all your budget all in one, game or one sporting event. But remember, with low risk comes low reward, and that means limited growth. So low risk, low reward, high risk, high reward. That's usually what you aim for. Next, the next con for flat betting will be that it's not responsive. And what we mean by this is it doesn't adjust based on percentage edge. So it's not like the Kelly criterion where some bets you may feel better than others and you're not able to bet more. Now moving on to percentage betting. And through our demonstration, we're going to show you flat betting. That's the unit size that we're going to pick. But you're going to see from how throughout this process how we move to a percentage better. And percentage bettor is basically they have a lineup of 1% to 5%, and that's how much you bet on each event. So maybe it's like 3% would be their regular plays, 4% they have good confidence, and 5 they have the utmost confidence more than anybody. And then they have those smaller 1% and 2% for like parlays or for futures. This is more for the intermediate bettor. It does good in terms of growth. So it's a kind of I want to call it the intermediate risk, intermediate reward. It's good for risk management, just like we just spoke on. It's about intermediate for both. The problem is that the variance impact, and this means like during losing streaks, the bet size doesn't. It just decreases. So this can slow down the recovery process and trying to get back to even. Also, it's a little bit overly cautious to some people. It all depends. It also all depends on how confident you are in those 1 to 5%. You really need to be good with your math in order to, touch on that the right way. Finally, the Kelly criterion. We're not really going to get into it because this is going to be, moving from beginner to intermediate. This type of video. The Kelly criterion you can check out in our other bankroll management video. We'll leave a card in the top right and also a link in the description below. So now with step three, after we have our initial deposit of $1,000 and we're picking fixed betting for each of the games, we need to find our outs. So what are outs? Well, those are bookmakers. You're going to see these five here. Those are maybe the most, I guess you would say for lack of a better term, most famous ones on the internet. You're also going to have your ones that are not so prominent, like your Bet Nows, your Bovadas, where um, those will also be an out as well. Another one would be a bookie. A bookie, personal bookie, would also be considered an out. Anywhere you can get odds. The reason why we're going to recommend five different outs is because it helps with two things. It's going to help with hedging your bets, and it's going to help with shopping the price. Why does it help with hedging? Well, if you bet a future, say with ESPN Bet, say you bet the Nuggets at plus 350 to win the title, and now when you get down to the nitty gritty and they're down 0-2 to the Timberwolves, maybe the Timberwolves numbers looking good on DraftKings. That way I can hedge my bet and I make a small profit out of it no matter what. That would be one instance. The reason why you would need different outs and can't do it at the same bookmaker is because when they notice that you're hedging your bets, they're going to stop you from any more business. They don't want you making a profit. So they're not going to want you anymore. They're either going to cancel you or kick you out or give you a stop notice. It's happened before. It hasn't happened to me personally, but it's happened to many of people. Seen it happen to many of people. That's what happens. So try to hedge your bets on different bookmakers. Also, it does shop for the best price. When you're shopping for the best price, think of it like this. Say if you ran 500 bets and you had 250 wins, 250 losses, and all the bets were minus 110. Well, you would have lost $227.27. Now, if you kept the results the same, you went 250 wins, 250 losses, but you change those odds. Instead of you getting the odds at minus 110, you got them at minus 105. You actually would lose $100 less. You would have lost $119.05. That's how much odds can make a difference. $100 with the same amount of plays, the same amount of record, but just different odds is what caused that. That works for both winning and losing. I know we use the losing example, but the winning example works just as well. You'll see the positive gains in that. So, just for the sake of this illustration, we're going to use the five bookmakers that you see here as our outs just to show you in terms of our bankroll illustration. So next what we do, remember we have the initial deposit. We know we're betting a certain amount on each game. We're going to want to select our outs and then fund those outs. So we're going to take our $1,000. Remember we had it in a high yield savings. We're moving it to 500 now. So now we're going to make $100 deposits into each of our books just to be ready to go when we need to snipe a line. 500 in our bookmakers, 500 in our high yield. This means it's $1,000 bankroll altogether. Perfect. Now that we had accomplished that, we know our bet size, we got our money ready to go. We have to develop our strategy. We have to start with the bankroll. Our bankroll's at $1,000. With an $1,000 bankroll, remember when we talked about our unit size, we wanted to do fixed betting. We're going to do it at 1%, which means $10 because 1% of 1,000 is $10. So we're going to bet all those games, about 500 of them, at $10 a piece. Remember that our high yield savings with that $500 is making 4.5%. We set it at 4.5% in the middle of that 4 and 5% we spoke on from slide 1. We have our five outs for our hedging and our in shopping our odds. So we have our plan here. This is basically our plan. We know we're $10 on every single game. We have our money being made in our high yield, and we're going to shop our best lines through these outs. Never stray away from the plan. Don't chase your losses. Don't bet with your heart. Don't bet intoxicated. We have the plan. Stick to the plan. The only time we adjust is on assessment days. And we'll talk about assessment days. Some people will do it weekly, some people will do it monthly. It all depends. It all depends how serious you are. I would say do it more on a monthly basis, especially if you're only doing 1% play. But we will talk about assessment days, sorry, coming up. And assessment days, they go hand in hand with keeping detailed records, which is step number 5. You're going to want to document everything and every single variable, from each wager to each stake, odds, the outcome of the bet, also the profit and loss numbers. You're going to want to know all of these things. Document everything. I would suggest keeping it in a spreadsheet. Some people may use apps. Old school people might even use white paper. Whatever it takes to keep detailed records, that's what you do. This is one of the most important pieces. It's also going to teach you a crap load about yourself and how you handicap sports. I promise you that. You're going to learn about your factors. And when I say your factors, if you've subscribed to Grandstand Sports Data, you've seen us cover factors like coaching, player quality, statistical factors. You're going to think that there are some factors in certain sports that make a difference. And after the 500 plays, you're going to say, I was completely wrong, and I've been looking at the sport the whole different way than I'm supposed to be. That just happens. Now, after the 500 plays, we want to go to an assessment day. This is when we're going to look at our total bankroll. Is it more than the $1,000 that we initially put in? We're going to want to look at our rate of return, our profit loss, and our win percentage for all of these factors. Maybe not for day because it's just the day, the day. But you're going to see what's my rate of return at ESPN Bet? What's my profit and loss in units in terms of ESPN Bet? What about in the NHL? How am I doing in my total bankroll for the NHL or my rate of return for the NHL? What about an NBA? How's my win loss percentage in the NBA? What about my selection? And this would be like team or person, right? When I pick the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA, what's my win loss percentage? You're also going to want to look at stakes, odds, results, all of these. You're going to also want to look at your factors. Maybe you think coaching in the NBA mattered. That's what I did when I was in my early 20s. I thought coaching in the NBA mattered. Then I went through 500 plays and looked at the rates of return and everything. The factor doesn't mean anything. So it's something that you learn. That's what I mean when I say that you're going to learn so much from keeping detailed records on yourself. You're going to know how you read the market. And that's the most important thing when winning money in terms of betting on sports. Next and finally, well, not finally, but right before finally, you're going to want to define your SMART goals. And what I like to do is like on the top of your records, I'll usually put something that you see here below. I want to increase my bankroll by 4% this NFL season. So you'll see it, September starts to roll around. I got my budget ready to go for the NFL season. I want to make that 4%. I put this quote at the top of my records. So if I have an Excel sheet that's keeping track of everything, at the top, it says, our goal is increasing by 4% this NFL season. It says it. And it's a smart goal because it's specific. What's specific? It has a set real number with a real deadline. It's measurable. So there's a unit of measure. Say if you were, losing weight, this would be pounds. Here it would be the 4%. You can measure the 4% over time. Is it achievable? Yes, I would say it's challenging. It's hard to make money at any point in sports betting, but 4% is not it's not crazy land. Is it realistic? What I mean by realistic is that is it realistic in terms of the sports betting world? You have to remember that 55% win percentage in terms of the best gamblers in the world, that considers you as sharp. So that's how winning in the long term, that's how hard it is in sports gambling. That 55% is a great number. Just note that there was a study also done that they took the averages of all the bookmakers that they could in this study, and it showed that 85% of the inventory are losing bettors and 15% are profitable. So just think about that when you're going into sports gambling. You have to be part of the 15%. just to make money in the long run, which is not easy to do. It's very hard. Last will be time. There needs to be a deadline. Everyone needs a deadline. Us, we usually use seasons. That's how we'll do from the start of the season to the end of the season. That includes playoffs as well. So that's how we would do timetable. Now moving on to the final step, and this is growing your bankroll. Let's go through our scenario that we've been talking about throughout the time. We said that we were going to do 500 plays. We were going to do it on a fixed betting system. That would be $10, which would be that 1% of the 1,000 bankroll. In the meantime, we were going to save $100 a month from our personal budget to our high yield savings. You're going to see this in this row here. So we'll be saving 100 in May, 100 in June, so on and so forth. Also, we'll be making 4.5% in that high yield. Remember, we had the 500 sitting there in the high yield. We'll be making $1.88 in May, 225 in June, July 263, and that's because of adding these funds as well. So as you can see, we have our bankroll right here at $1,247.29. That means that $247.29 is profit, and it's above that 1,000 that we initially started with. And that's from adding up these bookmakers. As you can see, we made money on ESPN, lost money on MGM, made money at Caesars, made money at DraftKings, and then lost money at FanDuel. Now, what we'll do, or what you will see, is that the $400 from savings that's been added every month is now in the high yield savings, along with its dividends that it was making per month. So all of this added into the 500 with the high yield savings equals the 909. And I just want you to remember this plus 247 as we get to the next slide. So this should look familiar from the past slide. As you can see from the $1,657.05, our total bankroll, we're going to start allocating to the bookmakers. And all this means is we're going to be starting to pull money from the ESPN because we made money. We were at 209. We wanted to 100. So we'll take that extra funds. We'll stick it in the high yield. This, we're going to want to take money from the high yield and stick it into MGM to make it 100 again. Then we're going to take that $6.14 out of Caesars and add it to the high yield. We're going to take the extra funds that was at 249. We want to make it 100, so $149 will now be put into the high yield. And then we're going to put $5 from the high yield to the FanDuel. So all we're doing is making it 100 across the board, having the leftover in the high yield savings. So having that total bankroll at $1,657.05. Now, what do you want to do with the winnings? Remember the winnings that we made on gambling was $247.29. Well, with those winnings, we're going to split it up into three ways. We want to save, we want to spend, and we want to invest. And saving is just going to be adding to your bankroll. That's all it means, just adding to your bankroll. So that $247, 129 cents of that is going to go saved into the bankroll, saved into the high yield. With the investment, we're going to do $15. Investing is going to be futures, so playing futures. We said this would be going into September, so think of it like this. Maybe you like the Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl. You think a $15 future bet on them is going to be a lucrative situation come, January or February. So you would bet that $15. That's you investing in the future. Finally would be spending. And this is, you basically want a dinner for you and your significant other, your friend, whoever. $132, you can take that and you do whatever you want with it. It's cashing it out. That's what you're spending it on. Now, with these three, you can split it up however you want. I know this is the most frequent question I get. Do we do it evenly? Do we do it? You do it however you want, but you should be putting it into three different buckets. If you have a priority on building your bankroll because you want to have your bets, your fixed betting, be a bigger amount, the way to do that is by building your bankroll. If you want to bet on, you have a lot of bets you want in the future that might pay off come the end of the season, then maybe you'll put a little bit more in your investing. Or if you're doing it just for fun and you want to have a timeout with the fellas or the ladies or whatever the situation is, you can take more out of spending. I'll just take your winnings and divide it into these three situations. And I say divided, I mean divided however you want in terms of allocation. Now with these numbers, I'm going to show you the next slide is going to give you the final product and what you will see. So now that we painted that last picture, this is what the final product will look like. Remember, we went through our 3: saving, investing, and spending. Now we're going to have a $1,10 high yield savings account, and then 100 across the board in our bookmakers. So this is going to be $1,510 in your total bankroll, and that's going to change your unit sizes. Now remember, just like I said before, we were record keeping for 500 plays. So there's going to be some factors that maybe you did on your own, your statistics, whatever it is, maybe, home field advantage, whatever the factor was that you were measuring, you're going to see significance in these. And what I mean by that is there's going to be some plays that are not a 3% that you're hitting at a high rate and you want to put it as a 5 instead. There's going to be some factors where you're going to be less inclined to play much and you probably play 3%. I know me, Anthony at Grandstand Sports Data, what I do is my 1 and 2% plays will be for futures. So it'll be for who's going to win the championship, conference, division, so on and so forth. And then these will be my regular day-to-day plays, which would be 3% to 5%. And usually I'm always doing a 3% play. Some rare occasions I'll have my 4%, and on some super rare occasions I'll have my 5%. But that's how I break it down. We hope this video was beneficial for you. We hope that it's going to help you grow your bankroll in a smart way, not just, trying to throw a Hail Mary every single day. We hope that you like this content. If you do like this content, please pay it forward. And the only way that you can pay it forward is by hitting the like button. That would be greatly appreciated. And also, if you like this content and you want to see more, please subscribe. Promise you, we're trying to pump out the best content that we can put up, that we can provide, and we hope that you appreciate that. So, like always, we'd like to thank you guys for watching. Uh, don't forget to share this with a friend, or share this with a buddy that you bet with, or share with anybody that you think could help, in terms of, they're always losing money or they're always making deposits and their money never lasts in terms of their bankroll. Also, comment down below on some future videos that you guys would like to see, future videos you'd like to recommend, or even some sports betting, other strategies that you would like to see. I know we have a few videos coming in the works, but like always, we'd like to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.